I know what's his name, Samuel Quantum Explorer. He was up at 4 in the morning his time to be on,
Oh
so
yeah.
he had a serious sacrifice to make in this case, and I'm always worried someone's gonna be like, gonna fall asleep, their face on the keyboard, and then push out a release candidate that's not ready, and then it's all gonna be my fault, which does happen sometimes. It's funny. Mostly I use YouTube for streaming, but I can't wait until Library has a live streaming function, which they've been testing and they're trying to. So it'd be nice to have an actual decentralized option, to do that. But let me share it on here. Let's see. Do we have any actual people watching yet? That says zero, but it'll kick in for a while. But anyway, oh, two people. All right, that's good enough. Hey everyone, happy Friday. Let me hit this intro graphic and we'll get going. So hey everyone, it's happy Friday to everyone. I have the wonderful pleasure of speaking with the one and only Anton Suprunchuk. I hope that was relatively accurate as far as pronunciation goes.
It was.
Yeah, so we have actually a pretty big list of questions to go through, which we'll see how fast it goes. So rather than just like a loose form conversation, we might just kind of stick to the questions in the meantime, and then when other things come up, of course, everyone feel free to jump into the live chat, and don't forget the live crypto super chat via Cointree, which, as you can see here, cointr.ee/the desert links, and you can go leave a donation with a message there. And yeah, as I might as well get to right here, I did get a donation earlier that I didn't manage to address, which said, I'd be super grateful if you could make a video on how to pay bills with Dash. Also, is there a platform where people can advertise, search both services offered and services sought for crypto? Love to learn about anonymous identity for crypto. That's a lot of questions, but the first one, I will be making a video in just a few days about how to pay bills with Dash. Spoiler alert, it's not very easy yet, especially in the US. The US sucks for these kinds of things. So I will get to, I don't know if there's a platform for either of those either at the moment. But anyway, this is not a live question. I just thought I'd answer a dead question. It's not a dead question, whatever. Anyway, so Anton, can you still hear me, by the way, right now? The video is not consistent.
Yeah, I think it's a problem with my ISP. It wasn't behaving that good for some
Okay.
time now.
Well,
Uh,
that's fine because Jitsi has been buggy for a long time, and it's a good scapegoat. We get to use that as long as there's audio. That's the thing that really matters. As long as we can still hear. So let me see. The first of these big questions, right, was about tokens, and basically what are plans or discussion about on-chain tokens on platform. And I'm assuming the context of this is, for example, Ethereum has 1 million tokens on it. Bitcoin Cash has its own kinds of tokens. Everyone cares about making tokens on chains, and it seems like some of the biggest use cases for various chains is literally just not the chain's token, but other tokens.
Mhm.
So, what is basically? I remember Ryan at one point had in an interview he said something about, he mentioned Bitcoin Cash SLP tokens, and he said that Dash could eventually do SLP tokens on steroids, were his words. So I don't know if you basically what's been talked about or planned about tokens so far.
Yeah. So the tokens are actually quite an interesting topic. Um, we don't want to not don't want we actually want to, but we want support like tokens as a native use case for the platform for the first release. But there was quite an interesting development recently in our community, in our Dash Devs Discord. We have an amazing community member, README, and he
Mm.
worked on on the specification how you actually can implement tokens using Platform. So it turns out that you actually can create tokens using the platform. We just didn't thought about this particular use case when we've built like the feature set that we have right now, but it appears that it's possible. And the way how they can be done right now has a small number of disadvantages. Like, for example, you actually need to download like it's the way how they can be done right now is basically building a blockchain on top of the platform, like having a very similar structure to blockchain, but on top of the platform. That will require that's can be a little bit inefficient in a sense for the light clients, for mobile wallets, for users with slow internet, because you actually will need to download quite a substantial amounts of data to verify the tokens, to verify the supply, to do all that sort of things. And it will require some additions made to platform later on to make it more efficient. So it's possible to do them right now on top of the platform, but we will improve, we will work on this after the very first release, because for the very first release, the main feature that we want to build is Dash Pay, right?
Of
And
course.
so tokens is a really, really great feature and a use case that we absolutely want to have. And we want to have like a really good token experience on Dash, like fast, like instant, just like we have with Instant Send, all the benefits that ordinary Dash has. We want tokens to have all the same things, but tokens, obviously. But we will work on that after the first mainnet release.
Yeah, and I think that there is a big market for that sort of a thing. For example, the only time I ever have used Ethereum in modern times is to move around various tokens that people have given me. And the first time I ever tried an Ethereum token, I didn't understand why I needed Ethereum as well as the token to send the token. And now it's like a lot of times, in order to consolidate all these tokens into Ethereum so then I can sell it for Dash, I have to pay a ton of Ethereum fees for each little token you got to move. And being able to just get over all that stuff would definitely be a huge usability point. Now, the other question we have here was basically regarding the stability issue on testnet, where testnet came out and then there were some stability issues and some bugs and stuff, and it was, I guess it's in the process of being fixed. And basically the question was regarding stability once mainnet hits, like what can be done to make sure that mainnet comes out smooth and stable.
Yeah, so we expected a mainnet release to be a little bit rough from the very beginning, because that's the first release. That's the first time we're releasing like the whole system into the live mode, into the real network, into the big network. We had small kind of preview networks before DevNets, but they were nothing like the big, the big scale testnet with a lot of people trying to do stuff and things like that. So we originally expected that there will be issues, and it worked for quite for some time. But then over time, we accumulated some things. We accumulated some like bug reports and stuff, and eventually we have the current stability issue, which was caused quite interestingly. So we've made a lot of debug. We made platform to submit a lot of debug data, to store a lot of debug data on the hard drive to better understand what's going on, to be able to analyze what's going on the network really fast, so we can fix things really fast. And ironically, that what actually led to the problem eventually.
The debug was the bug.
Yeah. So what happened is there was multiple issues. Actually, they were kind of unrelated, but they happened at the same time. I think they can be divided in three groups. Well, first, one was related to users not being able to register identities for some time. and that was caused by instant send not working. Because of the bug in RC2, it was fixed in RC3. It will roll out really fast, so that was fixed really fast. The second issue that happened around the same time is usage of the test network got really high. A lot of people were submitting a lot of documents, and this was actually, by the way, a really good stress test
Yeah.
For the testnet as well. And what happened is we run our nodes on medium instances on Amazon, and they have a very small amount of storage attached. Like we have 20 gigabytes hard drive on every node. And since we log a lot of debug information, that space, because of the high usage, get occupied really fast. We just didn't anticipate that it will end so fast, because we experienced like about 40 state transitions per second for quite a substantial amount of time, which I would consider a really, high level of usage. And we just didn't expect that there will be that high of a usage of the testnet. And so we just logged, for every state transition, we logged like, I don't know, no, I would say megabytes of data, but we logged a lot of data. And it eventually, since it's deterministic platforms, all logs were deterministic. And since it was exactly the same type of machine for every node, they run out of space at exactly the same moment. So all nodes crashed exactly at the same time, because all nodes run out of disk space. Luckily, we have 2 backup nodes that don't do any logging and stuff like that. They just run, so they still had a copy of the blockchain. Now, that caused a whole lot of various... it caused a cascade of other issues. So first of all, since it crashed, the mechanism that it uncovered, that the mechanism we used to gracefully shut down, to like for the platform to... basically, if your application crashed during like some write operation or anything or something like that, you need to recover something, because otherwise the files, the data will be just corrupted and not repairable. And our graceful shutdown mechanism that's supposed to prevent that didn't work. And that resulted in the corruption of the files. So the nodes need to be restored from the backup. And they went down, right? We fixed that issue with the graceful shutdown. So now we have a graceful shutdown properly working. And then because of the high usage, we uncovered another issue, which was that like platform tries to produce blocks as fast as it could. And because the issue was really high, it tried to produce blocks really, really, really fast. And it actually produced blocks faster than the PBFT timestamp we use to timestamp all the data, the minimum timestamp delta. And that caused our timestamps to be way, way ahead in the future, like 3 hours in the future compared to now.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, we wasn't expecting that. So we fixed that issue as well. So now blocks and minimum block time and minimum timestamp delta are the same. So that's going to be resolved now. So yeah, there was a lot of smaller issues. Almost all the issues are resolved by now. We started to resync nodes. We will see how's it going on. And regarding the how do we ensure that this won't repeat on the mainnet, right? So we expected this to happen on mainnet, right? We didn't have expectations that the very, very first rollout of the testnet will go smooth. There's a lot of use cases we didn't like. The all nodes running out of space at the exactly same time. That's not something you think about when you develop things. And I mean, it probably won't happen in the real life, right? But who knows what might happen? But that allowed us to test our graceful shutdown in a completely unexpected situation, which is great. And it's great that it happened right now, because it allowed us to uncover a lot of issues that we don't want to have on mainnet. So probability of something crashing like that, a system crashing like that, can't be zero, right? It's just like a Bitcoin confirmations.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Bitcoin, you need to wait 6 blocks. Well, different services have different requirements, but basically, the accepted norm, I would say, is that you uh, need to wait 6 blocks before you can say that something is confirmed. But it's not really 100. But no transaction on Bitcoin blockchain is ever confirmed 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Always 99.9999999, but it's never 100%. Because it's a probabilistic system.
Yeah.
But the chance of reorganization is so small. The longer it runs, the smaller the chance that rework will happen. Thus, it's so small, it's almost negligible. Negligible.
Mm-hmm.
So so you can think about software development and general stability kind of the same way. When we have a release candidate that can run on testnet, like let's say for a month or two without absolutely any issues, then we can assume that it is stable. There is still possibility of something going wrong, but it's really small by that point, because probably a lot of people try to do different things and try a lot of use cases that
Yeah.
would reveal bugs by that time.
Well, that's funny because Splowik in the live chat, he blamed me for it. He says I sent too many contact requests, and there's a small bit of truth to that because I did on the DashPay testnet wallet get a bunch of contact requests, and one of them was from someone called Fluffy Pony, which it wasn't really. I guess it wasn't really Fluffy Pony. We'll never know. But all I know is when I tried to accept his friend request, then the whole app crashed, and so I'm blaming him for that. That's for sure. Yeah. So with all this scalability stuff, that reminds me of we had a question on how will scalability testing be done on platform, and what performance do you expect from current Masternode specs, or how about much more high powered or beefy Masternodes?
Well, yeah, that's how the stress testing is done, right? Somebody submitted like 40 state transition a second
Mm-hmm.
for a quite long period of time, and that's essentially how we do stress test things.
Mm-hmm.
I will also say that this is the performance you would expect from a medium Amazon instance. I think that's a machine that runs about 2 GB maybe of
Mm-hmm.
RAM and what two cores of CPU, I think. I'm not really sure of the exact spec, but it's not a high spec machine really. It's something of a Raspberry Pi
Mm-hmm.
scale, something on that level,
Hmm.
maybe even a little bit slower. So that's the performance you can expect from a network running on those types of machines. Um, yeah, so one thing to note is that system requirement for running a Masternode will be a little bit, well, not a little bit, but they will be higher than
Mm-hmm.
currently, because we implement the whole new system, the whole new software stack
Yeah.
on top of already existing software.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to consider all the extra stuff that's being run on the same machines rather than, other networks. And I think it's funny to see like the spectrum of infrastructure you have out there where you have, for example, at the bottom end is probably like Dogecoin, to be honest. I've heard, was it Ujin was posting some stuff about, the Dogecoin nodes just are having trouble broadcasting all the transactions people are doing because there's not a lot of infrastructure. There's not a lot of development that's happened to make things more efficient. And then
Yeah.
all the way up to from basic transactions to then basic transactions plus like mixing instance and chain locks, all that stuff, and then you have all platform on top of that, and it really makes it important to have incentivized nodes, which kind of reminds me also when with Ethereum's gas fee problems, and a lot of people are saying, well, we're just raise the gas limit, and a lot of the more common objections to just raising the gas limit are, well, the growth of like the state size is too big. Basically, one of the big things is a lot of nodes will run out of storage too quickly, and it'll become too expensive to run a node, and then that won't work. And it seems like a lot of problems that could be solved by having an incentivized network of, super awesome nodes like the master nodes. But what do I know, right? Now,
That's a huge advantage
yeah.
of Dash.
Yeah, and I don't think that enough is running on most of these networks for that to really be appreciated yet, right? Most people use hobbyist nodes and then it works enough. And it won't be until we have just a lot of stuff going through and a lot of people demanding and are expecting very fast and efficient service before people will start complaining, and then you'll just say, look, this is too much. We can't really run this on hobbyist infrastructure anymore. And then, well, no one's paying us, so we won't run it at all. And we run into these problems. But anyway, the next question we had was, what are the current main development activities on Dash platform? What's happening now, and what's planned for the coming weeks? A very non-specific, kind of open-ended question, but basically, what are you guys working on now, and what are you guys going to be working on in the near future?
Yeah, so right now we were busy with fixing bugs
Mm-hmm.
that we uncovered in the prior weeks.
Mm-hmm.
There was plenty, which is good. It's good that we uncovering a lot of very non-obvious stuff right now. It's awesome. And then we have some things to do in the coming weeks. First of all, we want to integrate the amazing work that Sam did
Mm-hmm.
with it basically replaces EDDSA system, cryptographic system with BLS.
Mm-hmm.
I won't go into a lot of details, but that kind of allows us to do a lot of stuff. I would say properly. I wouldn't go into a lot of detail because it will take like the whole hour to explain what actually it allows us to do and why it is important. But that's what we gonna do in the like right now. Then we also will work on feature flags. That's something that's kind of the functionality that's close to hard forks
Mm-hmm.
for the payment chain. We don't have any hard fork functionality for the platform right now at the moment because we just wanted to test something to like collect the feedback and then implement hard forking a little bit later. So that's what we are going to work right now in the like maybe next week, maybe a week after that. Then we also going to improve the interop between payment chain and platform chain by tweaking some validation of top-ups. Basically, again, it
Mm-hmm.
will take a lot of time to explain what does it do. But basically, when you try to do something on the platform, you have to register an identity, and this identity has balance. So you need to transfer funds from payment chain to platform somehow. And this is the only place where two chains are connected. Well, not the only place, but
The main place.
that's like, yeah, that's the only place where you need to actually do a transaction on the payment chain for something to happen on the platform. You need to take this money, this dash, you need to take this off chain to the platform.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you need to create a transaction. And right now it's implemented, let's say, not the best way. There is a lot of limitations. Like, for example, platform only accepts transactions that were done in about 40 minutes prior to identity creation, which is, it's kind of suboptimal. So we want to take all transactions. So there will be some improvements in that sense. We're also going to work on optimizing platform state storage. Basically, right now, it's a lot of technical things. How do I explain it a little bit simpler? So right now we have a really complex things that deals with atomic changes to the platform state. And there's a lot of really complex logic that doesn't really need to be there. Uh, we we prototyped something, and we when we do something for the first time, we go with a very we go with the brute force, with the most naive approach to do things, and it's often very inefficient approach as well. So we need to do that, and we need to do that right now because it will affect, like, for example, things like uh, formats of the proofs for platform data, like the serialization formats and stuff like that. So it's an important chunk of work. I wouldn't say that it's like a giant chunk of work, but it's a very important one. And that's what we are going to work like in the coming weeks that are coming right now.
Yes.
And then we have some more distant plans. And the biggest thing by far, I think, would be incorporating platform into current proof of service system. And because even right now, you actually can, like, there is a proof of service system, right? And you can get banned for not doing things properly. But the issue is that, for example, the current proof of service score doesn't account for the fact that you run DAPI. It doesn't count DAPI availability. And DAPI is a decentralized API. It's basically an entry point for all the light clients for the platform. And if nodes won't run it, then no light clients can connect to the platform. So we need to include that score to the proof of service score as well. That sort of improvement. And then we're gonna rework the fee mechanism a little bit. Not rework. We actually won't do any coding on the fee system. Fee system will remain as it is right now in terms of code, but we need to lay some groundwork on how do we plan to implement fees to expand fee functionality. Because I think one of the very important distinctions that we have compared to Ethereum or blockchains like that, all the solutions existing right now have an indefinite storage. Like, if something goes on blockchain, it stays there forever, and you pay fees for that, like one-time flat fee, and that's a big issue. Like we did for the very first release for the platform, we did kind of the same thing, but we've calculated it. We assume that we have 50 years of storage, and 50 years of storage basically is as good as forever, because storage prices always goes down. And thus, if you calculate how much it costs to store something for 50 years, that's basically as good as storing something forever, because the prices goes down, and it's essentially that's like more than a human lifespan by far, by a large number.
Yeah.
That's the most naive approach, but the system actually assumes that we have a time-based fees. For example, you can have documents that don't need to be stored on the blockchain indefinitely. Thus, you don't want to pay for them for being stored indefinitely. So you can create a temporary documents that will be removed after some time from the platform. It will free space, and so the data size will be a little bit smaller, and then you don't need to pay for that anymore. So that sort of scenarios. We kind of have the code written right now, but we need to do an investigation on how we expand this system after the mainnet. I think this would be one of the main things we're going to do after the mainnet, like expanding on this time based fees, and that is a big advantage. That's one of the big advantages that platform has over other similar blockchains with similar functionality. I don't think that's something that any of the existing blockchains is actually offering right now.
Yeah, that's something that like when people start talking about the what is it, the state size in like Ethereum, about just how much it's growing all the time, is ballooning up to these crazy levels. Like when you think about that in terms of Bitcoin, like you're talking about a permanent record of every transaction that ever happened. There's a certain amount of value to that, to having like a permanent financial record. And then you start thinking about all the stuff that's being built that's not just someone sent money to someone, and you think of that's all stored forever. I start thinking like, does it need to be stored forever? Like when I friended you, and then I defriended you because I got mad at you, but then I refriended you, whatever, on social media. And does that part need to be a permanent record, or can it just store that we are friends at the current time? Like, does it, it kind of makes me think of it's a inefficient kind of a way, especially to store it in the same place where I'm trying to move money through. And, it becomes a little bit of a complicated situation there. So I guess I'm kind of glad that there's that sort of a pruning, as it were, of data, or some temporary data, so you don't have to store everything forever. So that kind of reminds me. There's another question here of when we're talking about the MVP release, or minimum viable product, or mainnet release, is what is still required before platform can be considered MVP, and I guess that kind of combines into the next question, which is, are there still significant technical problems or challenges that must be solved before the mainnet release?
Yeah, the thing now, the platform will go to mainnet feature-wise. No new features will be added to the platform before mainnet. Although we need to address a couple of very important things. First of all, is we need to integrate the SAM's work I've mentioned previously on integrating BLS cryptography in our consensus. That's a must-have before going to mainnet. Then we need to rework again proof of service. That's a must-have because we want to be sure that all services are running properly, and nodes that did misconfigure something or some other malicious node get banned properly, so the network is in a good, healthy state. It's still not now. It's important to mention that there is a proof of service system right now. It's just it's not as comprehensive. I don't know. Comprehensive is not the right word. It's not. It doesn't include all the metrics that we actually wanted to
Complete.
include. So we
It's not
need
as
to work on that.
complete.
Yeah, it's not. It's not as complete as we would love it. Would love to see it. And then we need to do some other smaller things, and we also need to rework the protocol, like hard forks. The feature flags I was talking previously is a very important thing, because if something goes wrong on the testnet, if like, for example, if there is a absolutely catastrophic failure that caused data to be not recoverable anymore, we don't have data on the testnet doesn't have any value. Basically, it's just a testnet, but we can't allow that to happen on the mainnet. So we need to have some sort of functionality that can do hard forks basically on the platform. This is a very important one. And I think that's almost it. We're also gonna do some smaller things, like, for example, we will need to rework how the way how we serialize data, and it's done. We want to do it right now, not right now, but before mainnet, because it's so simpler to do before you actually need to do some complex release with hard forks to optimize it later on. And and at the same time, it will allow us to test, the hard fork functionality. So yeah, that's almost everything that's we gonna need before the MVP. Well, the big things. I think proof of service is gonna be the biggest challenge. The rest of of those things are quite trivial. I wouldn't say that very trivial, but yeah, quite simple, and we basically know how to do them. The big unknown stuff, not like completely unknown, but the biggest challenge right now is proof of service system, and I would say that this is the only, like, the big challenge that we have right now. because there can be quite a lot of things. Proof of service isn't as simple as it looks on the surface, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's everything.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like, I guess, optimistic, if you ask me. It's not like, oh, we don't know how we're going to solve this critical issue. We say it's going to be done in a little bit, but we don't actually know. Um, so we also had a question about state transition scaling, apparently, about because obviously we can think of easily enough in terms of like the main blockchain. We have university research on how scaling to Visa levels of payments, but as far as like state transitions, that's a completely different thing to be scaling. And as I keep on saying with like Ethereum and the crypto kitties, like people keep doing that stuff, and that's clogging up the main chain because the main chain is not. It's not that it can't. Not that Ethereum hasn't been able to scale as far as processing payments. It has not been able to scale on the actual like data transactions. And so, basically, uh, what is the upper limit, or what are kind of some scaling considerations with state transitions on platform chain?
Yeah, right now it's about 40 state transitions per second. Like about a month ago or somewhere in the ballpark, it was actually 20. So we did some improvement in that sense since then. So it's around 40 state transitions per second, I think, as just was proven by the recent stress test, I would
Yes.
say. Um, it can now we didn't do a like detailed research like Darren did for Darren and Arizona State University did for the main blockchain, but we have a couple of solutions in mind how we can scale like way past that number. Um, Well, we'll see on the use case, basically. Right now, I think 40 state transitions per second is a good number. It's about like it means 2,000 and 2,500 writes per minute, or about that thing. So it's like imagine 3,000 people submitting some data at the same time. That's I think that's a pretty good scale. Not as good as it can be, but at the very beginning, I think that would be a good uh, kind of benchmark.
Yeah. I heard, I can't remember if it was Sam or someone else, but I heard of some ideas of sort of processing parts of platform chain in parallel, where some masternodes are working on a piece and the other ones are working on a separate piece, and then they just end up all working together. That basically you can run something similar to several chains at the same time. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, I don't think that that's MVP release kind of a thing, but I don't know. What do you think of that idea of running things? Do you think that could help make things a lot more efficient?
Yeah, well, that's one of the basic ideas of sharding. Like you have multiple chains running, and then they have like some checkpoints where they synchronize from time to time. It's a really hard topic and a big challenge for any project that wanna scale. Uh, right now, like Ethereum was talking about sharding for a really long time, and they still talking about it. There's still no sharding at the moment. It's a really big challenge generally to scale transactions that way, but once achieved, that can scale to, well, I think to basically any level of performance.
Yeah, which of course would be nice to think about. So when we're talking about the whole storage thing, you mentioned the long-term storage versus temporary storage, and basically how do we foresee storage growth as far as will Dash platform later be expanded with IPFS technology to increase its capacity, and what's the long-term capacity plans in terms of the decentralized storage?
Um, yeah, so according to our calculations right now, if the network operates 24/7, it operates at the absolute maximum capacity, it will add about 20 terabytes of data a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is quite a lot of data, and there still will be needed some indexing for queries and stuff like that. It will be around 200 gigabytes of index and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, things aren't stored very efficiently right now, so this can be reduced further by optimizing things. But generally, at this point, storing that amount of data will require someone to pay about 150 millions United States dollars in
Mm-hmm.
fees, which means, well, that every masternode will essentially be rewarded with 300,000 bucks
Mm-hmm.
for a year of running in such a mode, which is a good compensation, I think. For and you can afford if you get 300 grand for running a really beefy server to handle that amount of data. I think it's worth it. So um, the financial incentive is there. The type of server that can handle this amount of data is, for example, that can be AWS X8 large configuration. It offers 256 gigs of RAM and 32 core CPU, Xeon CPU,
Mm-hmm.
and it costs around 2.5 grand a month to rent it. So in a server rent, it will be about, well, yeah, 25 and yeah, about 30 grand per year. And you'll get like 10 times of that in fees. And remember that this sort of usage will, and I mean, if you need to pay 150 million bucks a year in fees, that will obviously create a positive pressure on dash price. The dash price will skyrocket if you'll see that, and it will be like, I don't know, $1 billion in
Yes,
fees a
of
year.
course. Especially if, I mean, if people are actually willing to pay that, if there's enough demand for that, which,
Yeah.
hopefully there will be, probably there would be, but, at that sort of a scale. That's one thing that I've always, whenever I talk about paying for things, people get a little weird these days because so much of the internet world has been free or supposedly free, where, you pay in other ways. And I do think that being able to pay directly for things is something that is going to sort of come back, and people will get used to being able to do that, especially in small amounts. But that's a completely separate discussion. Now, you already mentioned something about the fact that that platform and the main chain are completely segregated, except for like some very small relations, and that's kind of the next question was in what ways and when are layer one and layer two actually linked? Like when do they actually come together?
Yeah, they have a multiple things. Like both of them use quorums to validate data and operate data. Like Core uses quorums to make instant locks, to make
Mm-hmm.
instant transactions, and uh, the same mechanism of validation will be applied to platform. Like platform forms a lot of very small blocks really
Mm-hmm.
fast, and those are basically insta-locked, if
Mm-hmm.
you will. But that done by platform in the platform world. It shouldn't well, yeah, it shouldn't really affect the payment functionality. And the second place where they are connected is transactions, when you need to transfer dash from
Mm-hmm.
the payment chain um, to the platform. You need to make one transaction. Now, this isn't like you can create one transaction that transfers dash to the platform chain, but you can create transaction, let's say, for 10 dash, right? And then you can use this 10 dash on platform. It's not like you need to create for every action you do on the platform. You don't need to create a transaction with paying for that, paying fees for that action. you transfer value once, and then you use this value on platform. So all the fees, everything happens off chain, completely off chain. The system is, the platform is absolutely decoupled from the core. It's different code base, it's different processes. It goes as far, you can actually run core and platform on different servers, physically on different servers,
Hmm.
and the system still will work. And if platform goes down, this won't affect uh, payment functionality at all, because they are not related to each other. Platform functionality does not affect the core functionality in any way. And this has also created another interesting situation. So in hypothetically, if platform goes offline, you still can use DashPay app, for example, to
Hmm.
make payments to your contact list, because all the information required for to make a payment to your contact is on your device already. You don't need to
Interesting.
do any queries to platform. Yeah, platform only needs to exchange public keys between you and the person you're paying to. But once this connection is established, you don't need to do that anymore. So you won't be able to. So if platform goes down, you won't be able to create new contacts in
Yeah.
your DashPay profile, but you still will be able to pay to exchange funds with existing uh,
Yeah.
contacts.
That's very interesting. So, for example, I know that some current, I guess, username competitors require a second chain transaction every time you call up someone's address, for example. So every time I wanted to send to at Anton or whatever, I would have to send a credit on this other chain to get it to work. But just having it where you don't have to do any of that is, it's something that I guess not a lot of people think about, and also hopefully not a lot of people are anticipating platform being down, you know, because that's not exactly what people would want. But the fact that not only does the main chain work, but then the actual transactions between usernames, and so it's like it even works when it doesn't work. You even have platform functionality when platform isn't even functional at all, which is kind of an
Yeah,
interesting. It is a reassurance thing, because a lot of people are going to be trusting their payments experience with this, and some people, like, especially older people or non-technical people, don't understand things where it doesn't work. They just get that it doesn't work, and it's frustrating. And so obviously when something goes offline, lots of people are frustrated. But if it goes offline, if, like, let's say 70% of people are just sending money to other usernames, or just to other users, 70% of people won't even notice that it's offline, and then they'll be like, well, why isn't my little Twitter thingy working? Why isn't this work? But then everything else is sort of working, and hopefully by the time they realize all that, it'll be up and fixed again. But this is, again, hypotheticals, but it is very good to know that that there's a lot of functionality that remains even when things aren't working at all. So we had a maybe I'll save the Ethereum question for a little bit for the very end, because there's kind of two of them, and they sort of go with each other. So
hmm
this was interesting about more in-depth information on why we're not storing the social profile image on the Dash blockchain, but instead an external URL. Now, as far as I'm aware, because I remember I got this confused because I was documenting the Djembe user experience with the Dash based Twitter thing, and I made the mistake of assuming, because that was a time when, like, testnet was down or evonet was down or something. I forget which one it was down, and I couldn't actually use it, and I had to do things from memory, and I got things confused, and it said that you have to use a URL to an image. You can't actually upload an image, and I was corrected that was DashPay. That was not in this Djembe app. But so I do know that in the DashPay wallet, you do have to put, like, an external image as opposed to uploading an image like you would in maybe some other apps.
hmm
And so basically, like, why is that?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and it really highlights what platform is for and what and how how it works, and not how it works, but rather where the value of platform is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of confusion comes from the fact that in a lot of our documentation and presentations and whatnot, we say cloud,
Mm-hmm.
but cloud is such a buzzword, everybody calls cloud everything.
Mm-hmm. Of
And in
course.
our particular, yeah, and in our particular use case, we mean backend cloud, like the
Mm-hmm.
Firebase cloud, the server cloud, not
Mm-hmm.
a Dropbox cloud where you
Mm-hmm.
actually can store files.
Yeah.
Yeah, so um, the main value of the platform is that it can be used to prove data. It can be used to prove integrity of the data.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when you establish a contact request, what actually happens on the backend is your application se- your application sends a private key, not a private key, a public key to the other person, so it knows what addresses to use to pay to you, and vice versa. And this is a very critical information that needs to be proven, like hard proven that this is your public key. It needs to be verified that this is your public key, that it wasn't spoofed, because it was spoofed.
Mm-hmm.
Then you will just send the money to someone else, to someone you didn't want to send money to, like to some scam artist or whatever. So this is where platform functionality is needed. The same goes for usernames, for example. If Elon Musk sends you a contact request, you want to be sure that the person who sent you a pull request really has a right to operate under the username Elon.Musk, for example, or
Yes.
something.
Elon.doge, right? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you really want to verify that it comes from the rightful owner of this name. And you do that by verifying the signature of the data. You verify that the contact request, the incoming contact request, came from the same person that signed the ownership of this name. So you can verify that this contract request is really coming from this person,
Mm-hmm.
and
Not a troll
basically
or
it can be,
something.
yeah. Now this all takes kind of some small amounts of data to be passed through platform, but with an avatar and with an external URL. So first of all, avatars weight a lot. So for example, if you want to use DashPay, you probably will need to, I don't know, to pay $10 and $10, and you will be able to use like DashPay app without any limitations regarding the
Mm-hmm.
contacts and whatnot for like your entire lifetime, maybe, or something.
Yeah.
The amount of data, yeah. So the amount of data it needs to operate is rather small, but also at the same time it will require you about like $5 to $10 to store only the avatar on the
Mm.
platform, because it will be replicated to all 5,000 nodes. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of space, and there is just no need to, because if you want to validate integrity of an avatar, you don't actually need to have the exact file stored on the platform. You can have it stored anywhere, and then you just have to keep the footprint of the file in the dash paper file, and that's
Mm-hmm.
just 32 bytes. And then when you get the file from somewhere else, you just compare the fingerprint you've stored in the DashPay app with the file coming from external system. There is no need to store the actual file on the system. The actual file actually may be located anywhere. There is no requirement regarding that. So there is very little point in having file you just will occupy a lot of space and pay a lot of fees for this without having any benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess the user experience challenge to then do is how is being able to link people like their avatar pretty easily. And so like I know having like a gravatar type thing helps a lot. And like for me, because I'm already on other networks, other social media networks, it's pretty easy to just, especially because I know how to like right click, which a lot of people don't know how to do. I can just right click, view image, I'll copy paste the link, and like there we go. That's what I'm using. And so I guess the challenge is just for like new people who have they're completely fresh to this. It would be interesting to have like a use Twitter profile picture option that's just kind of automated, because that's what I did. I used my Twitter profile picture, but I just literally went to my Twitter, opened up my picture, and copied the URL and put it in there, which a lot of people, that's too technical for a lot of people, which is strange to say. But it would be fun to have an option where it would just like link your Twitter or just like log in with your Twitter and populate like your bio, for example. Be like, when you sign up, be like, there's an auto button where it just, you authorize it to access Twitter, and then it just puts in your picture, puts in your profile picture, your name, your display name, your profile, everything, which would be, again, that's a fun thing. It's not really nuts and bolts, deep technical part of the platform, but this is a question that we get. It's more of like a response to what I hear a lot, which is ever since the beginning, I've heard a lot of things that say Dash platform is going to be great for developers because it'll be a lot easier to build on. And the limit in my knowledge of this is that, for example, with Ethereum, you have to learn Solidity, which is a different coding language, and it's much more complicated to get into. Whereas with Platform, you should be able to just build applications in whatever language you already know. But that's kind of theoretically about all I know. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So one of the key advantages of the platform is that the developers don't need to learn any new tools or
Mm-hmm.
technologies to be able to build something on platform. The reason for that being is that that's that we have data contracts, right? And this is quite a bit. It's a different thing from what you have in Ethereum with smart contracts. And strong point of that approach is that how you operate with data contracts is basically how you operate with a normal database.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to learn any new technologies. You just write your data schema for your database. You use the same queries to query the data back you use on database. And all the crypto stuff, all the like verifications, all the proofs, all that sort of thing is hidden from the user via the libraries we provide for developers to use. We currently have 3 official SDKs, I would say. That's JavaScript, Java, and Objective-C. So JavaScript is obviously for the web. Java can be used for Android or desktops. And Objective-C is for Apple products. That's the 3 main SDKs we do alongside the platform. And the rest, well, I hope it will come at some point in the future, but that's 3 main languages you need to know if you want to build an app for Android, for iOS, for web, or anything. I think that's cover like most of the use cases, basically, with those 3 languages, with those 3 technologies.
Mm-hmm.
And developers don't need to learn anything new. It's
Mm-hmm.
just it's something that they already know.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now we have the second to last question is, which put a little bit into different order, but it's about basically the Ethereum thing. Is how will Dash Platform be able to compare with Ethereum? What are the advantages, limitations, and our unique capabilities that set it apart to attract developers? And obviously, part of the answer to this is it's a data contract platform rather than a smart contract platform at the moment. At least that's what I've been told, which kind of rolls into why did Dash choose to create a data contract platform instead of a smart contract platform? Can we later still expand Dash platform with smart contract functionality? And are there any current plans to build bridges to other platforms such as Ethereum? So basically, the Ethereum question is, how is Dash Platform different from Ethereum? Why?
Yeah, so the key difference from Ethereum is that in Ethereum, nodes are actually executing the code when they are uh, validating things. In
Mm-hmm.
Dash platform, nodes do not execute like the actual code. They are not what's called Turing complete. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically a database schema that you upload, and it's really fast. It's fast, cheap, and really easy to onboard existing developers from other technologies. Because of that, there is no entry barrier for the development, which again will attract more developers. At least we hope so.
Yeah.
Um, Also, unlike Ethereum, we have a query language that allows you to query your data efficiently. So it's just like in a normal database. In Ethereum, you actually need to execute the data code to execute the contract code. You need to understand what's the inner workings of that. With Dash platform, you just write your normal database query, you send it to the platform, you get the result back, and you don't get only the result back, you also get a very complex proof to verify that this data really exists on the platform. And Ethereum doesn't do that. It doesn't do things quite as simple as that. And I think like smart contracts and data contracts is a really, really cool thing. But it's also worth noting that there is something different on platform. We
Mm.
have a built-in identity and DNS functionality in that, and those are built as applications on top of the platform. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a thing called DPNS, which is a Dash platform naming service, and uh, it's I think by this time it's the most advanced naming system that exists uh, in the sphere, because it allows you to do a lot of things, and because it everything is interconnected in the same ecosystem, it allows us to do very, very interesting things. For example, in DashPay, uh, when you register in DashPay, your username is registered via DPNS, via name service, which is
Mm-hmm.
a different contract living on chain, and it doesn't interfere with DashPay. But and uh, DashPay functionality kind of functions without it. It can use names to discover uh, new contacts. And what this allows us to do essentially is uh, the payments between users in DashPay, you can't trace like the payments, unlike in ENS, where the name associated with an address explicitly on
Mm-hmm.
chain, it says this name, this address. We don't have anything like that. The name is used by DashPay to exchange public keys between two parties, and those are encrypted. They establish an encrypted channel via which they exchange their public keys, and only two parties that are uh, doing the payment know the exact addresses from which address to which address they made the payment. It looks just like a normal blockchain transaction when you look on blockchain, right? It doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
it has no difference. It has no relation to names, because technically you don't actually pay between two usernames. You're actually paying just with normal wallets. Username was used only to exchange the public keys. And yeah, because if we have this kind of those services working already on top of the platform, on top of this data contract system, it allows us to build this social element where you actually can use the same username for various multiple things, and it's also not really connected to payments, for example, and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, the thing, like with the whole Turing completeness type thing, is something you hear like a technical term thrown out a lot. And a term that I don't think anyone really understands. Like 85% of the people that say it don't really understand.
Yeah.
And so it's something to pump the price. I don't know. You know how the crypto works. It's like, oh, it's so cool. It's like immutable. They don't know what immutable means, but they say it. But so we're talking about. It seems like the efficient. It seems like what Dash Platform has over something like, say, Ethereum, is efficiency, and efficiency comes from doing things differently to a certain extent, but also from not doing things. Like as you said, the actual
Yeah.
calculations, computations aren't done, and so let's just like imagine a situation. Let's take the let's say like a Twitter clone. Let's say we're running a Twitter version on both Ethereum and the Dash version. So, what does everyone need to get done for like the Twitter version on Dash? So, I'm sure obviously you need Dash platform, right? And that runs the calculation. That runs stores the actual data and the
Hmm.
connections between people and stuff. But you need to run part of your own infrastructure as well, right? Like you have to have like a website with like a front end, and you have to actually do the operations themselves as far as doing like tweets and stuff, right?
Well, the tweets are done by the client software.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's something that's done by on your infrastructure, right? The way how website and
Mm-hmm.
apps work, when you open a website is downloaded to your machine, and then you do things locally, and then you interact with network directly.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing you need to run infrastructure for is to give the user the code, the client code, the code of website to you.
Mm-hmm.
And once this code gets to the user starts communicating directly to the platform without using the infrastructure. So
Mm.
basically, you need to only host the front end. That's the only thing that is not covered by platform.
Yeah. And so how I guess how easy is it for a person to say host that front end themselves? They need some basic website hosting package and that's it, right? For example.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so on Ethereum you don't need that though, right? Like you just it all that part runs on Ethereum itself. Is that the way I'm understanding it?
well, not exactly. You still need
Mm-hmm.
to host front end somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in terms of like say a Twitter clone or something like that, there is no real advantage you could get from doing something like that on Ethereum. It seems like all the stuff that Ethereum does that platform does not do, doesn't really come into play with like a Twitter clone. Is that kind of a correct
Yeah,
understanding?
yeah. With a Twitter clone, uh, Ethereum has no advantage of in building such an application as an Ethereum clone over what can be done with Dash platform.
Yeah. So what are some ideas? What are some examples of something that does have an actual difference where you can do something more involved on Ethereum, but with platform you'd have to kind of do some calculations on your own.
Yeah. So with platform, what you can't do is there is a certain types of applications, like for example, let's say supply chain management, where um, you need to, for example, you need to check that if something left the warehouse staff can no longer change uh, information about this thing. If somebody from a warehouse authorized, kind of signed that the goods left the warehouse, they need to have no ability uh, to modify this record ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that requires calculation. I'm not sure if this is a good example, because it's also really vague, because you need to understand where you actually need to run some code, some checks, and when you don't. What would be the better example? Let me think. Um,
Yeah, it would have
hmm.
to be something that's um, a popular thing on Ethereum today. because it's like, what can it be used for? Well, a good example is probably something it is being used for.
Oh, I know a good example.
Mm-hmm.
That's gambling. Platform cannot be used for gambling, and it cannot be used for to build a gambling app, because in Ethereum, the actual distribution happens via calculation on the chain. And since we have no calculations, like there is no point that actually will select a winner.
Yeah, and so you could make a gambling app on Dash, but you'd have to run your own infrastructure that would run the
Yeah,
automated calculations.
yeah,
And so there's like a few little things like that. So from my, I guess, understate, just, again, non-technical understanding of the whole difference is it seems like most things, there's a bunch of crazy complicated and automated and self-running things that run on Ethereum that might not necessarily run on Dash, but for the most part, most things Ethereum does too much. Like, it doesn't need to do all the things that it does for most things that people probably want from decentralized applications, or semi-decentralized applications. And so Dash, by doing what most people really want, and that's it, is able to do it much, much more efficiently. Is that kind of okay understanding?
yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess that's the bet. Speaking of gambling, that's the bet that people are making while making Dash Platform, is that by just focusing on what almost everyone wants, they can do a way better job at that than doing what literally everyone wants. And so you have a much more efficient, streamlined kind of a thing by just cutting off some of the other stuff, or not even making it impossible, but making it so you have to run it on your own infrastructure. And so I guess that kind of hits that last part of that question, which is interchain operability, or like bridges to Ethereum. So let's say you did want to build a Dash gambling app, and since it doesn't do the calculations itself as far as the probability and then paying people, then you wanted to use Ethereum for just that part, not the entire app, not the entire
Mhm.
infrastructure, then you'd want to be able to use Dash and Ethereum in conjunction with each other, right? So
Yeah.
what are I guess hopes as far as that? Is it something that's easily doable? Is it very complicated to do? Is it being thought of and worked on? Like, what do you think of that?
Yeah, we think about like having a interchain connection between
Mm-hmm.
Dash and Ethereum sometimes. Ideally, like at some time, we are gonna build smart contracts on Dash as well
Mm-hmm.
at some time, so people don't need to leave the Dash infrastructure at all to do such sort of things. And this allows us to have a really great amount of flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
because when you need efficiency of data, of only data, when you don't need to do on Ethereum, you always write every data is a result of calculation on Ethereum. You actually need to write a code that runs some calculation on Ethereum, which is not the most efficient way of doing things. And on Dash platform, if you have data contracts and smart contracts alongside, you can use data contracts for what data contracts is good for very fast, efficient queries of data verifications and stuff like that. And when you do actually need to run actual calculations, you can use them only when you actually need them,
Mm-hmm.
uh, not all the time. So ideally, we would want to achieve that, right? But we are building iteratively.
Yeah, of
First, we want to
course.
build data contracts, and then we want to add smart contracts later on. I wouldn't say that this is something that we will work on in the near future, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we need to figure out before starting working on smart contracts. But we definitely want to work them. We definitely want to have smart contracts running on Dash as well.
Yeah.
And regarding to the question, if how Dash can be connected to Ethereum, Dash is actually quite uniquely positioned in that sense. And again, because of the masternodes. Masternodes is just such a great thing, really. When you think about it, and when you think what's possible, because we have masternodes. This is not now imagine wrapped BTC, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can trade in Uniswap with wrapped BTC. But the thing about wrapped BTC is that it always requires a custodian. Wrapped BTC, there's an actual entity that holds the BTC. That wrapped BTC is baked by an actual Bitcoin held by BitGo, right? So what happens when you acquire some wrapped BTC is you essentially sending your Bitcoin to BitGo, and then BitGo gives you the same amount of wrapped Bitcoin on Ethereum blockchain. But
Mm-hmm.
BitGo keeps your Bitcoin in meanwhile, right?
Yeah.
It's this Bitcoin is not yours anymore. It now belongs to BitGo. And when you want to convert your wrapped Bitcoin back to uh, actual Bitcoin, you send your wrapped Bitcoin to BitGo, and then BitGo pays the actual Bitcoin back to you. But the Bitcoin is always kept by BitGo until you withdraw Bitcoin from system completely,
Mm-hmm.
withdraw to your own wallet. Uh, since we have masternodes, we have such an amazing possibility of using our long-living masternode quorums to do that sort of verification. Uh, like, for example, there's a really interesting project called Nomic.io, and this
Mm-hmm.
is kind of do not to go into a lot of details. It tries to do blockchain transactions, but offline. And it uses exactly the same system we have with masternodes. So you have validators, you have this sets of nodes that sign transactions. They use multi-sigs so they can ensure that no one single validator can spend the bitcoins, this wrapped
Mm-hmm.
bitcoins stored in one big transaction. And we already have that system, and it works way better than it ever could work on Bitcoin because we have this built in. It's a functionality of the platform. So we can do things like wrapped dash, but without any custodian, which is, I think, who done that before? I don't think anybody ever did some wrapped coin without completely without any sort of custodian.
Yeah, so that would be wrapped on the Dash chain, right? As in, say you do wrapped BCC, but Dash wrapped. So then you'd have a Dash version floating around, where like the BTC, or you talk about the other way around, where the Dash is what's parked, and then it's wrapped in, say, Ethereum or something, or
Yeah,
both.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it this way. Yeah, there is a special address where you can send your dash to, and you get the same amount of wrapped dash token on the Ethereum network.
Mm-hmm.
And in wrapped BTC, you have a custodian, a BitGo right now. You send this money to
Yeah.
you send money to BitGo address, and BitGo means the coins on the Ethereum chain.
Mm-hmm.
But with masternodes, you don't have to have this custodian. Uh, you can have dash sent to an address, and then the masternode's network can be used as a proof of existence of these funds, and they can facilitate this exchange of tokens when somebody withdraws tokens from the Ethereum wrapped dash from Ethereum back to the Dash blockchain. The masternode can verify the proof and authorize someone withdrawal back of their money,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Yeah, so it's very fascinating. We do have a couple of live chat questions. Does Anton have any idea how to attract more developers? Any online resources he'd recommend for Web3 and C++/Python developers? There are plenty of tasks to do that do not have devs assigned to them. So I'm guessing that's someone who's involved in the incubator is probably saying that. And I do kind of agree. I'll answer my part of that is that I'm sort of working on it in a video on how to use the Dash incubator. And so then if it's easy enough, then I can just put that out there anywhere there's a developer. I do know there's a few like developers who are looking and getting involved in crypto, but they don't know how. And so I'm trying to make that. But as far as what do you think about this, Anton?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the only way to attract, well, there's a, I'm not I'm not a specialist on marketing specifically, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think this is a more marketing related thing because even like things like Firebase, right? You still need to advertise this, you still need to market this. It's just your target group are developers, but
Mm-hmm.
still the marketing. I think what we can do right now as a developers is we need to build a good, really good documentation. Like all the great projects start with good documentation,
Of course.
and the FAS did an amazing job of putting this readme.io
Mm-hmm.
uh, documentation. So shout out to you for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we need to raise awareness of what Dash is by going to developer conferences and talking to real people um, on those conferences. And I actually wanted to do that uh, this year and well the previous year as well. But you know the it got a little bit complicated
The travel
around that.
plans, yeah.
Yeah, and so that didn't happen. And I don't really like online conferences because
Mm-hmm.
it's not like when you're in a real room with with the people, networking goes absolutely different. You know, when you one on one and on in person with someone, it just happens. The dynamics is very different. It just doesn't happen like that on online conferences.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I've gotten a lot of people interested in Dash in the past from going to actual conferences and giving a presentation, and then people walk up to me and have follow-up questions, and they want to use the apps, and it's like, oh wow, this is cool. And that's what really helps. We did have
Mhm.
a question that got skipped over because too many people were asking questions, which is nice. Which is, can any existing social networks adapt Dash platform to their software easily using the SDKs? Like, let's just say there was a social network like a Twitter, but not Twitter because Twitter sucks. But like that wanted to actually start using platform features like put everything onto platform chain, or use Dash usernames for usernames, or facilitate payments between users in the app, or whatever else it is. Basically, are there any can they easily adapt using the SDKs?
Yeah, just like I said previously, we've built SDKs so the ways in such a way that just uh, just any developer that has experience in any mainstream language just can adapt it right away. I think there is still a little bit of barrier to entry to understand how to register a username. Right, you need to
Mm-hmm.
study the SDK docs, but it goes as far as studying the SDK docs, right?
Yeah.
So uh, what we would benefit greatly from is from having it like a single sign-on application like DashPay, for example, can function as your login device. Like
Mm-hmm.
uh, for example, you open, let's say, Twitter, right?
Yeah.
And there is a button, login with Dash platform, whatever. Login with Dash, just login with Dash. You press a button and it says, "Hey, please enter your username." You enter your username, you press button login, and then you get a notification on your mobile phone saying, "Are you trying to log in on Twitter? Allow to log
Mm-hmm.
in on Twitter," and you press yes on notification, and boom, you are logged into Twitter. That's the experience we want to achieve ultimately.
Yeah, of
That's
course.
our goal, to have an experience like that, and we want that to be easily doable through an SDK we have right now. Obviously, in the first mainnet release, that's not going to happen. That will be really bare bones release, and
Mm-hmm.
we will need to build like better client side tools to do integrations like that later on. But there is a lot of really great developments that can do some things like that. Um, for example, the Chrome wallet would be one great example of this. That again is developed by our community right now. Uh, yeah, that's what we ideally want to achieve, like that sort of simplicity.
Well, nice. There was one more. It's not really a question, but I did. So there was a comment from Splow. He said he gave me $5 so I could afford to host an avatar on Dash platform. A little allusion to what we were saying. I got another one. Sometimes this thing doesn't refresh completely in real time, so I have to refresh it. But I did get another small comment. Big flex with the ultra rare Doge pillow in the background, which is true because, fun fact, this was gotten from the Free State Bitcoin shop when that existed still, and of course Doge pillow. How do you not want a Doge pillow? And one of the only reasons I got it was one of the last ones because Dr. Darren Tapp bought the other ones, and he keeps on taunting me he has more Doge pillows than me. And then the shop bought all the Doge pillows they could find on the internet, and these ones these don't exist anymore. They got completely bought out, and then they had to buy some weird looking ones. They were still Doge pillows, but they weren't. The next generation weren't very good. And then now, as far as I know, I don't know if they exist anymore. But just the fact that there's a super rare kind of a thing, people kind of notice. There was one more question in the whole thing, which was, what part of this entire thing, what part of Dash platform are you personally most excited about? Whether it's just a key part of platform or a use case that you really can't wait for someone to actually build out on.
Yeah, well, a platform has a lot of things to be excited about. I mean, I'm excited about whole thing, right? Because I'm building it, and this is something I am believing in. I think this is so amazing. Like, the thing we are building is so unique, and it has such a great value. I don't think there is any project that has, all the things together. There's Ethereum that can kind of achieve the same thing, but again, on Ethereum you have high fees and slow transactions. You don't have this Masternode networks. You don't have instant transactions, and we have kind of the whole thing together. And the experience I'm most excited about right now is the one I've just mentioned, like this login with Dash or the shop with Dash. Like, imagine you're like browsing a website. Like, the thing with this your mobile application using being an authorization device for everything you do is such an exciting use case for me, actually. Because imagine you are shopping on Amazon and you have a button, pay with Dash, and you press a button, you enter your username, and you don't have to do anything else. It just, notification pops up on your mobile phone and it says, hey, you're trying to buy this legendary Doge pillow on Amazon. Was that you? And you press yes, and boom, it's paid. You don't need to copy paste any addresses and stuff like that. And then just this level of integration, and you can press a button and poof, something is done without need to wait for any synchronization, without need to care about all this blockchain stuff. It's just your mobile app. It says, okay, do you want to do that? Yes, confirm. No, not confirm. And this just operated with a simple username or one-time code or whatever, like, something really simple. That's the use case I'm really excited about. Like, I'm really excited about building the whole ecosystem around that, right? The whole integrated big thing.
Yeah, I have to say that that's the thing that I'm interested in the most. I use like a dozen different social networks because I'm kind of like trying them all out so I can tell people about them or design a better one, but that's a different story. And so one thing that's always a pain is just like balancing, like, oh, you need a new email, you need a new password, don't reuse your password now, and all this kind of stuff. And it just becomes annoying. Or like, I remember back in the day, I used to actually have like a bank, and I used to actually buy things with a bank card, and that was always annoying because I'd go to a new website and be like, all right, you got to enter your name. Okay, then we get your shipping address. Where do we send the stuff? Then I have to enter the billing address. Like, what is the address that's associated with the card, and then you have to enter the card. You have to run over and get your wallet from the different room. Come here and go like, look at this, type that in a security code, all that, and then boom, and then it works. And that is a horrible experience. As much as people complain about the copy and pasting of addresses, it's much easier to pay with cryptocurrency online than it is with fiat currency if you have to do it from zero. The ways that fiat is more efficient is when you have all your payment information already logged in and stored on the website, so it can get hacked and sold on the dark web, and then you can have a huge headache. So that's something that I really hope, having that encrypted data on platform that has all kinds of very important and private information on yourself that is not accessible to be hacked, that you can just sort of let a website access so that you can just use it. It's one of those things where I can't imagine a vending machine for alcohol in the US, because the US is terrible with regulations around that. They need an ID, otherwise you're not getting to buy it. But a vending machine where you can just put in your Dash username and it just has your government ID in there somewhere, where you can just beep, use Dash to buy a beer and from a machine. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing about this is that the actual service doesn't have to store any of your information.
Mm-hmm.
Your information, you own your information. It's stored right there on your device, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just press yes or no button. It never leaves your device.
Yeah.
Now, you need to take a good care of your device, but I mean, you have to anyway.
Yeah, that would be a different story. Well, I think that's a good time to conclude this whole thing. Where could people find more about you personally and follow you, either social media or other places?
Or you can follow me on Twitter. Geez, I need to come up with some username that actually easy to pronounce. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can follow me on Twitter.
Yes.
Or on GitHub if you want to follow what I do on platform, the code I actually write, if you're interested in that. And please join our Dash Devs Discord.
Oh, yeah.
That's a place I'm regularly checking out to see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, join that one too.
Well, that's fantastic. So if you're watching this, and there's 38 of you watching right now, it says, make sure you have to hit the like and the subscribe button, both of those. And I will be doing the after party right after this, which is just the same sort of a thing, except it's not public, it's not broadcast, and as many people as you want, and we just talk forever. In fact, I know a few people have excitedly mentioned, a few people from the live chat have excitedly mentioned they went in on the after party as soon as it starts, including some people from, the investment foundation and other things like that. So lots of fun people. If you want in on the after party, you have to go to what is now known as the Dash Discord, which is, I believe, staydashy.com gets you in there. And then you just start asking around, hey, can I get in the after party? Let me type that out in the livechat.com. And then we'll let you in, and then we get to hang out. So, Anton, thanks very much for spending your evening chatting on all the most interesting things. I feel like we got through a lot of very in-depth information, and a lot of people are very thirsty for that. So good luck with the continued development of platform. And yeah, we'll see you. I will see you guys in a week for the Digital Cash Rundown if you want to. But for the Dash podcast next time is 2 weeks. So see you guys around.
Yeah.